welcome into this Big Ten today. Dave Revson and Anthony Herron. I'd say we have a few things going on. Champ game, new coaches, new CFP.
A lot.
A little bit to discuss.
A lot to discuss. Voluminous, if you will.
Oh, nice.
But I do think we'll be able to pack it all into the next hour.
The English major always comes up with a good word to describe it. Voluminous it is. SI's Pat Forty knows how to do a thing or two with words himself, joining us. And Pat, it does feel like there is some clarity in this CFP, which leads me to believe the whole thing's about to blow up. But that's just kind of my worldview, I suppose, trickling over.
Yeah, it's like when we got a clear path right to the finish line, that's when the trap door opens, right? We'll see, but it looks pretty clear right now.
It does seem like it is. So we'll get to all that coming up here in a bit. But let's dive into our big story, and it is the all Big Ten offense. Yeah. This is the first team. Again, there's coach's team and a media team. There was a fair amount of unanimity here. 10 players named first team in both votes. C.J. Stroud, the top QB. The running back is interesting. I mean, there are three great players there. Mo Ibrahim and Blake Corum are the first teamers. Charlie Jones and Marvin Harrison, both fabulous years at wide receiver. Sam Laporta gets the nod from a loaded tight end group. How about Michigan? 3 first-team offensive linemen. The Buckeyes and Wolverines, each with 4 first-teamers. The Graham George Offensive Player of the Year's Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud wins the award for the second straight season. It's the 5th consecutive year that this award has been won by an Ohio State quarterback. Stroud leads the nation in passing efficiency, tied for the national lead with 37 TD throws. He is the 5th player to win this award multiple times. Let's look at the individual award. Stroud is also the Greasy Breeze Quarterback of the Year, 7th straight year that Ohio State has won the Big Ten Quarterback of the Year. Running back Nick Singleton of Penn State takes home the Thompson Randall L. Freshman of the Year award. Marvin Harrison Jr., the Richter Howard Receiver of the Year over Charlie Jones. Amazingly, that is the first time an Ohio State player has won the Big Ten Receiver of the Year. Blake Corum, the first Michigan player to win Big Ten Running Back of the Year. Loaded group, as I mentioned, with Mo and Chase Brown. Sam Laporta wins the Tight End of the Year. Northwestern's Peter Skoronski is the Remington Pace Offensive Lineman of the Year, the first Wildcat to win that award, which was introduced in 1984. The Dungy Thompson Humanitarian Award goes to former Indiana QB Nate Sudfeld and former Illinois AD Ron Gunther, the Ford Kinnick Leadership Award winner. So, lots to digest there. Pat, let's start with you in terms of what stands out among those individual awards, because there were some very interesting races.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, there's a lot of talk in our culture about having too many trophies, but I think there aren't enough trophies for the running backs here because it's such a good group. I mean, you're talking about 3 absolute stars in Mo Ibrahim, in Chase Brown, and then Blake Corum. And Blake Corum, you certainly are not going to get me to say he's not deserving of it. But again, if we could just kind of hand out a 1A and a 1B after him. I mean, Chase Brown, 1,643 rushing yards, 27.3 attempts per game. And Mo Ibrahim had even more attempts per game, 27.6, 1,594 rushing yards, 19 touchdowns. Those guys were workhorses in an era where, you're parceling out carries with an eyedropper. No, they were old school throwback, give me the ball, let me carry this team forward kind of guys. So I loved watching them play.
And we thought that Chase Brown was going to be in a position where he was splitting carries with Josh McCray, and that's not how the Illini offense worked out this season. So he did end up taking such a big load for them. To the tight end position, I mean, Sam Laporta, it makes sense, but a guy like Payne Durham at Purdue could have been in that tight end conversation as well. I'm sure that he was, even Corey Dyches for Maryland. But when you're looking at the position, it's named after Dallas Clark is one of those people who the award is named after in this conference. And a guy like Sam Laporta, who not only has a huge load as the main pass catcher in an offense that didn't have as high volume of passes thrown as some of the others around the Big Ten Conference. Sam Laporta, not only as a pass receiver, but as a run blocker, former wide receiver in high school, who's picked up his ability to set the edge, to block the run more and more effectively each season, really makes sense as a tight end.
I'm with you guys on both of those. It was an unbelievable running back league this year. It was an unbelievable tight end league. And I wait till you see the players who are on the third team at tight end. I mean, it's astonishing how deep it was at that position. I also think wide receiver was fascinating to me, whether you went with Harrison or Jones. Both had prolific years. Harrison is, I mean, an out-of-this-world player in terms of, you look at him as an incredible NFL talent.
And frankly, even offensive line, Dave. I mean,
Yeah.
Paris Johnson, you could have made a case there. Oluwatimi, as a center for the Michigan Wolverines. John Michael Schmidt, one of my favorite centers over the last few years at Minnesota. Several guys you could have made a very strong case in the offensive line award as well. But it just does show the depth of individual talent in the Big Ten Conference this season.
No doubt. More awards to come later in the show. Again, we'll reveal the second and third team All Big Ten offenses as well. We're going to speak with Blake Corum, the running back of the year. So plenty of coverage on the All Big Ten teams still coming out. But we do want to get into the CFP. I mean, the truth of the matter is this is the biggest story in college football here down the stretch. Michigan's number 2 after dismantling Ohio State. There have been some thought perhaps they jump to 1, but Georgia remains in that spot. TCU's 3. USC is now up to 4. The other real point of interest was the 5 spot between Ohio State and Alabama. It goes to the Buckeyes. So presumably, were someone to drop out of the top 4 after championship weekend, the Bucks would be first in line to get there, although who knows? You put nothing past the committee at this point. But
are you making presumptions, Dave?
It would seem to indicate that since neither of them plays this weekend, that were someone to drop out, Ohio State would move up. So I think the really interesting question here, Pat, is who's already in? Like, can Georgia lose this weekend? Can Michigan lose this weekend? I certainly believe they can and still get in. Can TCU lose? Can USC lose? I think those are the questions that still need to be answered. In your mind, how many teams can afford to lose this weekend and will still make the playoff?
I think 3 can. I'm going to put TCU in that group as well, although they better not get blown out. But I could see TCU being able to lose and get in there, and I'll get to that in a second. But Georgia and Michigan, absolutely, far and away, I think the top 2 teams at this point have done nothing wrong all season. I think the only reason Georgia's still ahead there is you go back to it, non-conference schedule. Georgia played 2 Power 5 teams out of conference, so they played 10 Power 5 opponents to Michigan's 9. We've talked about Michigan's schedule, so look, there's really not going to be that huge a difference between 1 and 2, I don't think, but that's why I think it broke down that way. As for TCU, I think they were helped by Kansas State moving up into the top 10.
Yes.
That's their opponent this weekend. And so you're playing a quality opponent. They were the highest-ranked 3-loss team. You don't win the game, you lose by 7, maybe even 10. I think you could be okay if you are the Horned Frogs. Then you get to USC, and that's where it's slippery, and that's where Ohio State, being ahead of Alabama and boxing them out, theoretically, as you said, nobody really knows for sure what happens on the last committee vote. But it's set up where if USC loses, Ohio State could move in.
And, there's so many other things as far as, once you kind of go to the transitive property element of it, that maybe the committee could try to shift some other things around in the end. But I agree. It seems to me that certainly the top 2, Georgia and Michigan, are good regardless. I do think that TCU, when you have sort of the inverse of what their role was, what their position was in the first college football playoff, where they didn't have a conference championship game in the Big 12, and then they got leapfrogged by Ohio State that particular year. Now there is some jeopardy here where if TCU not only loses, but maybe they just don't look good against Kansas State, because all the metrics have really favored TCU throughout the college football playoff rankings, but the perception hasn't. It still is seen that they don't have a true marquee win, whereas, teams in the Big Ten, teams in the SEC, they have marquee win. So the metrics are there, strength of record, strength of schedule. But for whatever reason, TCU has continued to be this team that's sort of been swimming upstream from a perception perspective. So I don't think they sleep comfortably on Saturday night if they don't win the Big 12 championship game. And certainly if they lose, if for some reason they just lay an egg, they have trailed in a number of games this season, guys. If they lay an egg against Kansas State, I wouldn't be too confident in from TCU.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I just look at it from the point of view of the first college football playoff year, 2014, where TCU was seemingly comfortably in, had a huge win on the final weekend, and got leapfrogged ultimately by Ohio State, the team that won that first CFP. Yeah, I mean, they had a huge win too. And again, a lot of people pointed to, and the committee pointed to that, hey, they did not crown a true conference champion. Right. and that ultimately worked against TCU. That wouldn't be the case this year, but of course they would, if they win the conference championship, you don't have to worry about it. Were they to lose it, it's a different story. But I think, Pat, there probably is some PTSD there, for lack of a better term, from the TCU fan base about, hey, let's just take care of business and not worry about it. What do you think of USC's matchup? I mean, you lost to Utah earlier this year in an extremely close game. This is a USC team that is overwhelming on offense. It may have the Heisman winner. We have seen them, though, give up a lot of yards and a lot of points this year. What are the chances of USC falling to Utah?
Yeah, I mean, I was there for that game in Salt Lake City. It was a heck of a game. And there were 3 or 4 different occasions where it looked like USC was not just going to win, but blow them out. And one play happened to kind of keep Utah in it. A couple of controversial flags, a couple big plays by the Utes, and they came back and won in the final minute. It was the only time USC trailed in the whole game. I came away from that thinking USC's probably a better team on a neutral field. Now we're going to find out. And I think USC has taken up their level of play offensively even more, and defensively they're not quite as bad, although they were shaky against UCLA. They were better against Notre Dame. So I think it sets up well for USC this weekend. Caleb Williams right now is just playing at a ridiculous level. Their receivers, their running backs, their offensive line, and they're continuing to get turnovers defensively. Some of them are gifts, but a lot of them they're making plays. So I think USC is in good position, but they've got to win.
Buckeye fans, they need to essentially join the MUSS. The Utah football team, the Utah Athletic Department in general, they have something called the MUSS. It's the Mighty Utah Student Section, and that's kind of their rooting interest, has like a great Twitter account and everything. So Buckeye fans can go out there and join the MUSS, just sort of figuratively join the MUSS for this individual weekend. And if you get an impressive performance from Utah, that's the path for Ohio State back in. And, you know, I really think Ohio State, I still see them as one of the 4 best. They're not one of the 4 most deserving right now, and that's how this balance ends up working out. They shouldn't be in the top 4 right now, but I won't have any qualms about Ohio State making the college football playoff, because I do feel like it's been a bit overstated that Ohio State has some sort of a soul searching that needs to happen after losing back-to-back seasons against one of the top programs in the country. It's not how we're accustomed to seeing Michigan in recent years, but Michigan is outstanding, man. They beat Ohio State on the field. They earned that, but it doesn't mean Ohio State's not an excellent football team.
I have to believe that the Pac-12 championship game Friday night will outrate the ratings in the state of Ohio. May outrate some places in the Pac-12 footprint. I think there's going to be a lot of interest, a lot of interest on that game. Congratulations to Minnesota's Taylor Landfair in a conference chock full of superstars. She is the Big Ten Volleyball Player of the Year. The redshirt sophomore outside hitter led the conference in kills and points per set. This after missing most of last season with an abdominal tear. Minnesota opens the 2022 NCAA tournament as a 2 seed. They face Southeastern Louisiana this Friday. Other individual honorees: Ohio State's Kylie Murr, the Defensive Player of the Year. Her teammate, Mac Pedraza, the Setter of the Year. Purdue's Eva Hudson, the conference's top freshman. She was the 7-time Freshman of the Week. Only Dana Retke's won it more. And Kelly Sheffield, Coach of the Year, led Wisconsin to a national title a year ago and the outright Big Ten title this year for the 4th straight season. We are pleased to have the Player of the Year with us right now, Taylor Landfair. Taylor, congratulations. Tell me about your reaction when you first found out that you had won this award.
Oh, so thank you, first of all. And I was really excited just because I know that last year I really couldn't play the whole entire season. And so being able to just come back and bounce back the way that I did and be able to get this accomplishment has been huge for me.
How did you find out? Like, tell me how it was revealed to you. Who told you and where were you?
So I was just sitting in my class. It was during the middle of the day, and Coach Hugh texted me and he said, "Can you keep a secret?" And I was like, yeah, sure. And then he's like, "So you basically just won Big Ten Player of the Year." And then he said, "Congratulations." And I was super excited about it.
So you're sitting there in class. You have to keep this secret that you've just won a huge honor.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, what was the class? What are you learning about at this point?
So I was in my Societies of the Future work, which is basically just like centered around technology and how it works in a society. And so at first I was just like, shell shocked basically. And then I was kind of just like getting back and forth in my seat, kind of just trying not to move too much, just because I didn't want to make a ruckus in class. So I was super excited.
I know your parents go to virtually every game, traveling from outside Chicago to go watch you play. What was their reaction when you told them?
So I actually didn't tell them because I wanted it to be a surprise for both of them. So my dad actually found out, I think, through social media, and he texted me this morning, congratulations. But I don't know if my mom knows exactly yet because she hasn't texted me. But I told her to tune in so she can watch this. So now she for sure knows.
Well, that is fabulous. So maybe your mom is experiencing it right now. That is pretty cool. There are so many great volleyball players in this conference. I mean, that is part of what makes this such an incredible honor. But I want to ask you, if you could, and you can't name one of your teammates because that makes it too easy. If this was not going to be you, who would you vote for this award? Like, who else has stood out to you among a conference full of superstars?
That's a good question. I think for sure Mac Charles, who won the setter, I think she's a really good athlete. And then also Maddie Kubik, especially since she has a lot of experience within the Big Ten. I think she did a really good job this season as well. If I couldn't say people on my team, I think probably Lexi Rodriguez. She did really good this year too.
Well, that's good. I don't want you to name everyone. I was just curious. No, it's just, I mean, I always find it interesting. Who do players, in terms of their opponents, who are they in awe of, for lack of a better way of putting it? And I know a lot of your opponents have that reaction when they go up against you. And it's really an amazing story because I talked about it off the top. You sat out last year, most of last year, with an abdominal injury, kind of were feeling some discomfort early in the year, and then it really kind of blew up. Take people through that injury and what that experience was like for you last year.
So when I first originally heard it, I didn't really think that it was a major thing. And so I was like, oh, I think this may just be because I'm really sore, or I may have done something that kind of tweaked it a little bit. So I kind of just let it subside for maybe like 2-ish weeks. And then during our our preseason game against Texas is kind of when everything kind of started happening a lot. And I feel like I really felt that tear during, I think, the fourth set. And so I kind of was just making progress as I kept going along through the season. And I just think that at some point I really decided that I need to redshirt just because it'd be best for myself in the long run. And I think throughout that process, it has led me to be able to be a good teammate, be able to just celebrate my teammates, especially since I couldn't be out there on the court with them, and just taking advantage of all the time that I had outside of the court to make sure that I'm rehabbing properly and making sure that I'm taking the necessary steps in order to get back, because I didn't want to rush anything too quickly, because I didn't want the injury to come back at some point.
What was it like to step back out on the court this year for the first time, having been through that? And then also, just a reminder to people, your freshman year was the COVID season, so you didn't really get to play in front of crowds. You had a little bit of that last year. What was it like to get back out there this year and play in front of the great crowds that we see in the Big Ten and really get to show everyone who you are?
I think it was really exciting and really fun just because, again, like you just said, that we really didn't have fans in the first parts of my season. And so just being able to show the fans what we can do and being able to have all that energy from the fans and bring all that momentum into us, I think it's just been one of my favorite parts of the season.
We head into the postseason now. How does the depth of this conference, do you believe, Taylor, prepare you for the postseason?
I think it's really good because no matter what team that you face, they're still going to be a really good competitor. And so you really can't take any points off regardless of who that team is. And so I think that's really prepared us because we've been able to experience so many different parts of different teams. Like, for example, really tough spin serves, are really hard, aggressive shots, like deep corner. Whatever that may be, I think that that's really prepared us for the next part of our season. And then also at practice, we have to make sure that regardless of what goes on, we still practice different fundamental things that we could experience in the postseason.
Taylor, I mentioned you grew up outside of Chicago. I was reading a little bit about you. I saw that you were a competitive cheerleader, and you were the flyer, so that's the person who's thrown up into the air. Now, I don't typically envision that as being someone who's 6'5". Like, at what point did you outgrow being the flyer?
So I actually did elite cheer when I was really young, maybe like second or third grade, something like that. And so I played elite with all the girls that are probably, I think, maybe like from 16 to 18. And so it was really fun just being able to be thrown up in the air just because I was so light at that time. But then I think once I hit fifth grade is when I stopped doing cheerleading because I got too tall and I had to do a different sport.
At that point, you focused exclusively on volleyball?
I did a little bit of basketball, a little bit, but I didn't really like it because I didn't like all the contact. So then in sixth grade, my mom was like, let's just try volleyball just because I did it. And she can kind of set me the fundamentals and just like the basics. and then I really got into it because I loved it.
Well, it has been fabulous to watch you this year. There is a really interesting story developing with your team, and obviously that is that Coach McCutcheon announced in October that he was going to step down at the end of this year. He has been a wildly successful coach, both internationally and at the college level as well. How much have you and your teammates spoken internally about trying to send him out, frankly, with a national championship?
I think that we're just trying to take advantage of the amount of time we have with him still, because it could really be really easy for us to just be like, okay, well, he's leaving. What's the point? And I think instead we're just taking advantage of it and making sure that we take every single second that we have with him to our full advantage, and making sure that we fight for him and we're getting every single point. We're practicing really hard every single day at practice just so we can potentially get this national championship for him.
What makes him such a great coach? Tell us a little bit about him.
I think he does more than just be a coach. I feel like he also really wants to form those personal relationships within it and within his players. And I think sometimes coaches can just kind of see you as like a toolbox tool instead. And I think that he really is confident with building our relationships with us, which I really appreciate, just because it could just be really easy for him to just be like, okay, well, you're just my athlete and I'm just your coach. And like, I feel like we're kind of all on the same level in terms of like our communication style and what we do on and off the court. So.
That's fabulous. Taylor Landfair, congratulations. Big Ten Player of the Year, an incredible honor, and best of luck going forward in the postseason.
Thank you so much.
Let's take a look at the rest of the first team. It is such a loaded league. There were 10 players who were unanimous selections. Those are the players that are in blue here. Landfair joined by Illinois' Raina Terry, a couple of Huskers, Maddie Kubik, who she mentioned in our interview, Lexi Rodriguez as well, Temi Thomas Ilara from Northwestern, Pedraza, Emily Laundot as well, unanimous picks from Ohio State. Wisconsin with 3 unanimous first-teamers, Danielle Hart, Sarah Franklin, Devin Robinson. Congratulations to all of the honorees. Our big stat focusing on Blake Corum, the Big Ten running back of the year, as we mentioned to you earlier. Also one of 3 finalists for the Doak Walker Award given to the nation's top running back. Chase Brown of Illinois on that list as well. You see Corum's ranks top 3 in the Big Ten in every category you see here. He's the leader in yards per carry and rushes of 20 yards or longer. And Blake Corum is today's big interview. Blake, congratulations. You and I were just talking down the line a moment ago during the commercial break, and I was saying, man, I mean, some unbelievable running backs in this conference this year. What does it mean to be the one who was chosen to win this award?
It's a blessing. You know, it's a true honor to be recognized for this great award. Like you said, there's a bunch of great running backs in this conference. It's a pack. But, you know, it's honestly a blessing, and I'm truly honored.
We were talking about 2 other guys, Mo Ibrahim and Chase Brown. What stands out to you about each one of those 2?
You know, they're great backs. You know, they do a lot of great things. They run hard. You know, they're elusive. You know, they break those long plays, and you know, they're key players on their team. You know, without them, you know, the teams, Minnesota and Illinois, they wouldn't have had the seasons that they had. So they're great running backs. I think they both have a very bright future. And like I said, the Big Ten Conference has some of the best backs in college football. So it's an honor to be able to get this award.
Well, let's talk about the immediate future for you, and that is the championship game this week in Indy. I mean, it's been a heck of a week, I would imagine, in Ann Arbor, between beating your rivals in Ohio State and heading to the champ game and now being in a great spot to make it to the playoff. Give me a sense of what it's like to be on campus right now at Michigan.
It's a happy ride. You know, it's a happy journey. You know, it's great to be a Michigan Wolverine right now, and for many reasons. You know, not just because you know we beat Ohio State or we're going to, you know, the Big Ten championship, but you know it's been a heck of a year. You know, this team really came together. We picked up right where we left off last year, and we've had an even better year this year. So it's been not only a happy week. It's been a happy year, and you know it's real fun on campus right now.
How do you maintain your focus, Blake, with everything that's going on around you?
You know, you just have to keep your eye on the prize. You know, we didn't win the Big Ten championship yet. You know, we haven't got invited to the college football playoffs. So, I mean, those are our goals, right? So, you just have to keep your eye on the prize, stay together and go chase the dreams and the goals that we have.
What message do you think that your program sent with that win over Ohio State?
I think it has sent a very strong message saying, we're one of the top teams in college football, that we deserve to be in the college football playoffs. But, before we even get there, we have to get through this week and beat Purdue in the Big Ten Championship. But it sent a strong message that, as a football team, whether it be offense, defense, or special teams, we're well-rounded. And, we're not a team to play with, and, we're going for it all.
You played very sparingly in that game against Ohio State. You're battling a knee injury. What do you believe your role will be Saturday against Purdue? I'm
going to take it day by day, but, we shall see. But with me or without me, I believe in my team. As you can see, they got the job done last week. And so, I'm going to take it day by day. But best believe my team will get the job done. We're just that tight of a team, and we have that many great athletes and the coaches. So, I'm going to take it day by day. We shall see Saturday.
Give us a sense of what's going on with your knee. Like, are you experiencing pain constantly, or is it just kind of thing where when you're out you try to cut on it, that type of thing?
It's just a nagging pain. So I'm just we have the best trainers. I'm in there every day with them. So they're getting me right. Like I said, we will see. If I play Saturday, whenever I may play. But I'm just gonna take it day by day. Stay with my teammates. Get them right, get myself right. Stay in the film. And treat every game, every opportunity like it's a championship game. And so I'm prepared the same each week, whether I play or whether I don't. So like I said, we shall see Saturday if I play or not.
There was a great feature on you on the journey, and it was talking about your background, being from Virginia, being from a small town, and kind of emerging as a high school player. For those who may not have seen it, and shame on them for not watching it, but give people a sense. I mean, you drove all the way from your small town in Virginia into Baltimore every day for high school. Give people a sense of what that was like and what you went through to play on a bigger stage.
It was a sacrifice from my mom and dad. We would wake up at 3:30 in the morning. We would stop halfway. I would work out with my trainer, Raymond Washington. Then I would continue to drive down to Maryland to go to high school. And it was just a sacrifice. My parents. I told my parents, what my goals, my aspirations were, and they bought into it. They were willing to do whatever it took to get me at this level. And I'm so thankful that they were able to do that for me, because it has put me in the position, to set myself up for life and my future family, whatever it may be. But just because my parents saw how bad I wanted it, coming from a small town, it was going to be really hard to get recruited. And so they sacrificed, and we every day, we would wake up at 3:30. They would drop me off at school. They would come back, go to work, come pick me up, and we would get back. And so, there were long days, a lot of sacrifice went into it, but trust me, it's been paying off, and it will continue to pay off.
So how long was that drive without the stop at the trainer? In other words, if you would have started at your house and driven in just straight to school, how long was that drive?
It honestly depends on the traffic. The DMV traffic, it's pretty bad. But, I would just say, 2 hours there, 2 hours back.
Wow.
And that's just 4 hours for me. My parents were putting in 8 hours, on top of work. And, I have sisters too. So, it was a big sacrifice that they put in. But, I'm so thankful that they were able to do that for me. And I'm honestly, just blessed.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. All right, give us the scouting report against Purdue. You said you're in the film. Mm-hmm. What do we need to know about the Boilermakers defense?
They upset a lot of top 3 teams. That's what they're known for. That's what they've done over the years. They're not coming in here, thinking, we're going to whoop them. Nah, they think they're going to whoop us. From what I've seen in the film room, they fly around. They play as a team. And they have a lot of great players. The scheme that the defense coordinator puts them in is a really good scheme. And, they're going to come into Lucas Oil Stadium and try to beat us. So, like I tell my teammates, we got to prepare each week like it's a championship game, and this week is a championship game. You know, last week was a championship game, but this is for the trophy. And so, you know, I believe in my teammates. They're putting in a lot of work right now. We're putting in a lot of work. And, you know, we're going to go in there and do what we've been doing all year.
Blake Corum, Big Ten Running Back of the Year. Really a pleasure to visit with you, Blake. Congratulations and best of luck this weekend and going forward.
Thank you so much.
As we take a look at the second team All Big Ten offense, these are the players who were not named to either first team. You have a tie for the coach's QB, Leah Tungabailoa and Aiden O'Connell. The media choosing J.J. McCarthy. Chase Brown, we mentioned him leading the nation in rushing yards, second team All Big Ten. That's how loaded that position is. The rest of the list includes a couple 1,000-yard receivers, Trey Palmer, Emeka Ibuka. In fact, Palmer set the single season yardage record at Nebraska. Great group of linemen as well. Olu Fa'anu announced this week he's coming back to Penn State, widely considered a first-round pick, so that is huge for them. Payne Durham, first among active tight ends nationally in TD catches, so amazing group there. Speaking of Durham, he will lead Purdue into the championship game Saturday in Indy, battling Michigan, as we talked about. Tail of the tape certainly decidedly favors the Wolverines, top 4 in the conference in every category you see here. Those defensive numbers are both in the top 3 in the nation. So, with that as our backdrop, I am rejoined by Anthony Herron and Pat Forty. Pat, what would it take, in your estimation, for Purdue to pull off the upset?
A lot. You know, I think you have to start with Michigan not playing its A game, or probably even its B game. I don't anticipate that happening. What I saw from them last year in the Big Ten championship game, when I thought they would have a letdown, and instead they just pummeled Iowa. These are mostly the same players, a lot of them at least. I think the leadership core and the mentality is there. And I loved what J.J. McCarthy did during the press conference after the Ohio State game. They were wearing Big Ten East Division champion hats. He took it off, dropped it on the table, says, this means nothing, job not finished, which means they've still got their eyes on some things ahead. I don't anticipate a letdown from them. But we are talking about Jeff Brom, upset Warlock. He's going to come out. He's going to have stuff to throw at them, trick plays, fake kicks. They're going to go for it, right? And I just think they're going to drop back and chuck it 50 times if they can keep Aiden O'Connell upright long enough to do it and just let the chips fall where they may.
And, you know, you mentioned being the upset Warlock, 3-0 against top 3 teams as the Purdue head coach.
I mean, that's just staggering. It's just staggering.
They've
right?
got Michigan right where they want them.
Yeah.
That's exactly how Purdue likes to operate. And then, you factor in even just the sort of mechanical end of Aiden O'Connell not being with the team this week, dealing with tragedy. We didn't recognize that at this point last week, of course. But to Jeff Brom, Brian Brom's aid, I suppose, the fact that they have, as everyone's come out of COVID, they're still able to communicate with their quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, to whatever extent, he's able to at this point in the week being away from the team via Zoom and still get the game plan in. And of course, in the time that he's been there throughout his entire career, he knows the offensive system really well. He's going to have a ferocious Michigan defense lined up across from him at wide receiver. Charlie Jones is the player on the team who has faced Michigan in a Big Ten championship game before. He did it last season, mainly as a return specialist, but he can impart some of that knowledge to his teammates as well. And Purdue, away from home the last couple of seasons, has been excellent. This isn't a true road game, but their road record over the last 2 years has been 7-2. That's number 3 in the Big Ten Conference. So they will certainly be closer to their home, to Ross-Ade Stadium, than Michigan is to their normal confines, but Purdue is accustomed over the last couple of seasons to performing at a high level when they're not at their home venue.
No doubt. I'm going to be fascinated to see what the crowd split is, but you have to believe there are Boilermaker fans who are falling all over themselves to get these tickets. No doubt. You are right in acknowledging, Aiden O'Connell has been through an unimaginable personal tragedy, losing his brother unexpectedly here in the past week. And so obviously our hearts go out to him. We mentioned it earlier in the week as well. But it is a challenging spot to be in. It certainly puts everything that's going on externally here into perspective.
J.J. McCarthy even reached out to him during the week here as well, reportedly, just to send his condolences and share that with him. I mean, just it goes to speak to what kind of person he is in the midst of knowing the competition that's out in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely. X and O wise, Pat, you mentioned X's and O's here, and that Jeff Brom is famous for kind of drawing it up in the dirt and coming up with great game plans and plays that he feels like can put his team in a position to pull these upsets, and historically we've seen him do it. Is there any area where you feel like Purdue has a competitive advantage or can kind of at least play Michigan to a draw, something they can lean on?
Well, the one thing I think is that this is different than most of the teams, especially offensively, that Michigan has faced. Because they are perfectly fine throwing the ball 50 or 60 times if they want to. Ohio State has a great passing offense, but didn't want to throw it that many times. Purdue, Jeff Brom, if like the running game isn't working after 2 runs, they'll be like, fine, we'll chuck it. We'll throw it around. So that's going to be a wide open playbook from that perspective. They are a big first down, second down passing team. Most teams it's run on first down. Purdue, 212 first down runs this year, 187 first down passes. So they keep you guessing right away on what you're going to do instead of being a stereotypical run first, throw later team. So it's just going to have to be a different mindset for Michigan of like, we're going to have to cover and we're going to have to rush 50 or 60 times during this game.
First meeting since 2017, so we haven't seen these teams. They're not familiar with one another outside of, as you said, Charlie Jones playing on a different team in the Big Ten championship game in back-to-back years. So it should just be a great scene on Saturday in Indy. The Big Ten and ACC split their 6 men's games last night. Illinois got a triple-double from Coleman Hawkins, crushed Syracuse. Maryland, a huge winner as well. Chris Murray had 31 for Iowa. 3 narrow defeats. Penn State fell in double overtime. Wisconsin and Michigan both led in the final 2 minutes of their losses. And again, 6 more games tonight. Busy night for women's basketball. The ACC Big Ten Challenge tips off there. You can see Purdue host Syracuse, 6 p.m. Eastern here on the Big Ten Network, followed by Wake Forest at Minnesota. That game is at 8 p.m. The marquee matchup, number 4 Ohio State and number 18 Louisville. And that is where Big Ten Network analyst Autumn Johnson will be. She is joining us now from Louisville. And before we get into the games, Autumn, just give us a sense league-wise. Where do you think these 2 leagues stack up nationally?
I mean, for the next 2 days, we're going to be watching the best of the best, and the numbers do not lie. In the AP Top 25 poll, you have 5 teams from the Big Ten, and you also have 5 teams from the ACC. The other school or conference that can say that is the Pac-12. They also have 5 teams represented. But when you look at both conferences top to bottom, I mean, it is first class. If you want to talk about the Big Ten specifically, 3 teams in the top 10, Ohio State at 4, Indiana at 5, Iowa at 10, and Michigan and Maryland are still climbing its way up. As far as like for the ACC, 4 teams in the top 12, and Louisville just slipped out of that top 10 spot, which is the first time in 5 years. I mean, this is just a testament of how these teams are panning out, and we get to watch the ACC Big Ten Challenge going up against each other. When you even look at the bottom of the Big Ten, I mean, you have like a team like Nebraska, who was once in the top 25, hit a few bumps, but I can see them potentially breaking back in. Penn State right now undefeated, Purdue, Minnesota, Michigan State. I think these teams are sleepers and have tons of potential, but we're in a store for like a fun 2 days for sure, Dave.
Well, let's run in through a few of these games. Ohio State and Louisville, we saw the Bucks beat Tennessee to open the season and really kind of set the tone. Now, J.C. Sheldon's been out here the last couple games, but give us a sense for where you see the Buckeyes. Are they the best team in the Big Ten, in your opinion?
Oh, I mean, they're right up there. I think when you look at all teams, Indiana, Iowa is also in that conversation. Indiana has that top defense, adding that 3-point scoring. Iowa always brings in one of the top offenses in the nation. They hit a couple of bumps as well. But Ohio State, for me personally, they're just checking off all of the boxes right now on the defensive end and on the offensive end. On defense, they're number 1 team in the nation in turnover margin. J.C. Sheldon leading the entire nation in steals. She's been incredible, providing double-figure scoring for this team as well. And then on offense, they hold the top 3 offense in the nation. The Splash Sisters, as I mentioned, J.C. Sheldon and Taylor Mikesell having some chemistry together this year. I think they're the best of the best. So obviously those three teams are in the conversation for me, but at this point of the season, so early, Ohio State, to me, is looking like the best team in the conference right now.
105 points in consecutive games without Sheldon. It's remarkable. Tomorrow's a great game. North Carolina and Indiana, two top 6 teams. Grace Berger, unfortunately, injured her knee over the weekend. She's not going to play in this game. Unclear what her status is. They're saying day to day, according to Terry Morin. How does Indiana make up for her absence?
Well, Grace Berger, I mean, it is a huge blow to the team for sure. I mean, she provides double-figure scoring. She's that good 1-2 punch with Mackenzie Holmes. Her mid-range game is incredible and fun to watch. She gives defenders a problem. She can rebound, and she was running point for this team. But, you know, it reminds me of the time last season when they were able to bring in, have Mackenzie Holmes out due to injury, but this team still found a way to rally together and make up for her absence. I can see them doing just that because they have a balanced squad. They bring in tons of transfers that revamp them. Sarah Scalia is a great facilitator for this team. She provides 3-point shooting. I can see Yarden Garzon stepping up at the point once again. She did for the remainder of that game whenever Grace Berger went down. But it's just going to take a little bit from everyone, I think. And North Carolina is a tough team, and they're looking hot right now. They just knocked off Oregon and Iowa State. Deja Kelly is playing out of her mind. So it just takes everyone in this matchup to make up for a player like Grace Berger.
Iowa hosts NC State. We saw Iowa fall to UConn over the weekend. What's the key to them bouncing back?
It's just going to take all players. I think for them, the offense is never in question. I mean, you have the best top scoring duo in the nation and Caitlin Clark and also Monica Sonano. But other players like Kate Martin, McKenna Warnock, who Kate Martin went 6 for 6 from 3 against the Huskies. That was an incredible game to watch. Coach Bluter says she's like an unsung hero for this team, but everyone just has to do a little bit of everything. And for me, for Iowa, it just comes to the defensive stops. Like NC State is a team that loves to run. They can work on both ends. They have new transfers as well, so they're still trying to gel together their system. But I think when I look at Iowa, I just want to see more from the defensive end. Like if they can get things rolling and get those defensive stops when it matters, I think this team will be incredible. But it'll be a game of runs, just like how we saw them go up against UConn. They played really well. It just at the end favored UConn, but I think they'll be strong if they can go execute on both sides of the ball for sure.
They are a fun offensive team. I mean, Martin, you mentioned 6 for 6 from 3, and she's playing with the mask. She's broken her nose
Right.
3 times in the last 2 years. Feel bad for her. That's tough. Michigan has started the post-Naz Hillman era at 7-0. How good do you think this team is? They're taking on Miami here in the challenge. Were people sleeping on Michigan here?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Yes, literally sleeping on this team because they were ranked number 25 coming into this season. And that was last season. They were just an Elite 8 team. They were number 12 team in the nation. So that kind of shocked me when I saw the first AP Top 25 poll. And Coach said it herself, like we went from the underdogs and have something to prove. And now they're trying to show that Michigan women's basketball is still here. Incredible way to start the season. 7-0, huge wins over South Florida and also taking down Baylor. But they're doing it with the core that they still have. Leah Brown, Layla Filia, Maddie Nolan, Emily Kaiser, who is playing so well at this point of her season. She was just the MVP of the Gulf Coast Showcase, nearly averaged a double-double in that one, had a career high of 26 points. But in the absence of Naz Hillman, the question has always been, like, who's next? It's Emily Kaiser, and I really think, like, she's stepping up to that moment. She's showing that she's ready for that moment. And I really loved how she played alongside of Naz Hillman. I mean, they were like Batman and Robin in that front court, but she's showing that she is here and she's ready to step up for this team.
Autumn, can't wait to watch these games coming up starting tonight. Thanks so much for helping us out, shedding some light into it, and enjoy yourself in Louisville tonight.
Thank you so much. It feels like March. Excited to see it.
Here's the third team All-Big Ten offense. Ohio State's Mayan Williams, Penn State's Nick Singleton, the running backs, Michigan's Ronnie Bell, Michigan State's Keon Coleman, the receivers. Offensive line includes a couple Gophers, outstanding tight end group as well. Congratulations to all of those who were honored today. Well, since we last convened, a couple new coaches in the Big Ten. Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, Matt Rhule at Nebraska. Pat, I want to start with you. And Rhule has a little bit of a steeper hill to climb than Fickell does. What do you think of this hire from a guy who is a rebuilding specialist?
Well, I love both hires, first of all, but specifically to the Nebraska situation, from what I've been told, Matt Rhule turned him down at least once, if not twice. There were some other coaches who did not express interest, so things were looking a bit rocky. And for Trev Alberts to pull out Matt Rhule, who I think was probably as good a candidate as you could get, I think it was a great hire for them. And I expect him to come in and deliver a lot of steak. Maybe not as much sizzle, but a lot of steak in terms of building a substantial program that's going to play good defense. You're going to be able to run the ball. He's going to recruit well, and he's just going to build in a solid manner.
That's what he did at Temple, what he did at Baylor as well. What do you think of Fickell in Madison?
It sounds like there's some fences to mend, perhaps. You know, players a little bit raw, and it's understandable where they were developed ties that they had to Jim Leonard. There was an expectation that maybe he would get the job, but it's not shocking. I went through a coaching change in college from Hayden Fry to Kirk Ferentz, and some guys transferred out of the program there. Luke Fickell, everyone I've spoken to says he has no issues connecting with people, and he wants to be on the practice field leading up to their bowl prep, and he's already talked to Jim Leonard about that. So we'll see what the future holds for Jim Leonard, but I think Luke Fickell's going to be just fine.
On paper, two great hires. Right. I mean, you really couldn't draw them up better.